Markey is the preeminent champion for nuclear disarmament in Congress. He's held that status ever since he entered Congress, and since the days of the nuclear freeze campaign in the 80s, and he's keeping up that record today with his barrage of bills addressing various aspects of our nuclear weapons crisis that he filed last session. And as soon as we put him up, he's going to tell us what his plans are for this session. He ran for re-election last year on a platform as an unabashed progressive, and we were happy to support him. And we are so happy to introduce to you today Senator Ed Markey. Senator, welcome. It's good to see you.
Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, we can see and hear you, although you're sort of at the bottom of your window, but we can still see.
Okay, hold on, let me.
That's a little better, yeah. That's nice.
Okay, good. How's that? Is that okay? I'm just trying to clear my screen here. Excellent. So thank you, Cole. And thank you to Mass Peace Action for inviting me to speak on all of these incredibly important issues that you are discussing today. This is, without question, a mission that we have to achieve, which is to reduce the threat of nuclear war in our world. And last Tuesday at noon at the United States Capitol, we breathed a collective sigh of relief. Donald Trump no longer had custody of the nuclear football, and the more secure hands of President Joe Biden finally had control of the nuclear buttons. And President Biden took his oath of office on the very steps on which a Trump-incited insurrection against our government was carried out just 2 weeks earlier. Trump's unprecedented assault on our democracy that day led me and my colleagues to ask, what other lawless actions could a vengeful Trump take at home and abroad as time ran out on his chaotic presidency? It was just an incredible moment where in my office over the intercom, a voice said, the Capitol is under attack. Lock all doors, pull down the shades. The Capitol is under attack. So that was an unprecedented moment. It's a moment that Mass Peace Action, Cole, and all of the other fantastic leaders who are a part of this conference that you are having today have been concerned about. That is the irresponsible decision-making that an individual president can make. And that was a moment that I will never forget. And it's why we need an impeachment trial of Donald Trump. But at least we have made it through his presidency. But it doesn't in any way mean that we don't have a lot of work to do. So with my good friend, Congressman Jim McGovern, we penned an urgent letter to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. In it, we asked General Milley not to carry out any order by President Trump to use military force illegally or to use nuclear weapons. Our fears of a commander-in-chief gone wild in his final days were similar to those of national security officials under another president who also faced pressure to resign from his office many decades ago. In 1974, Richard Nixon's Secretary of Defense and chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff took the extraordinary step of asking military commanders to confirm with them before carrying out orders from the White House, fearing that an erratic and inebriated President Nixon may attempt to execute a rogue military action. And while Nixon could not be taken at his word, he spoke the truth about his godlike powers as president. He said, I can go into my office and pick up the telephone, and in 25 minutes, 70 million people will be dead. The stark reality is that currently, no one person, not even an entire branch of government, can stop the commander-in-chief from ordering the end of millions of lives instantaneously. We must insist on meaningful checks and balances on the first use of nuclear weapons. We knew President Trump to be unfit. So too was Richard Nixon, and so too may a future president. But fallibility should not be what stands between civilization and annihilation. So this should not be a partisan issue. This should be a constitutional issue. Our Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the exclusive power to declare war. And there is no war like a nuclear war. And that is why, again, this week, Congressman Ted Lieu of California and I announced that we plan to reintroduce our bill that ensures the United States will not fire the first shot in a nuclear war, at least not without specific congressional authorization. President Biden does not need to wait for our bill to pass Congress. He can channel his own words. In a January 12, 2017 speech, then Vice President Joe Biden said that he did not see a situation where the United States would need to use nuclear weapons first in a conflict. But to dial the minute hand of the doomsday clock back from midnight, we have to think about the big picture. And that means ending once and for all the out of control weapons spending that has become the norm. And if we follow through in spending $2 trillion on nuclear weapons over the next 3 decades, we will have made the world safe for nuclear weapons, not from nuclear weapons. It is time that we show that we value vaccines over warheads, and that we value education over annihilation. Fortunately, we still have time to prevent nuclear weapons from blowing up our budget. My SANE Act lays out smart cuts in the Pentagon's unaffordable nuclear weapons wish list. We can slash new systems and warheads while still deterring any adversary and reassuring every ally. I will soon reintroduce this bill, and I'm going to be urging President Biden and my congressional colleagues to embrace these reasonable cuts to defense spending. In the coming weeks, I will also introduce a bill that will redirect funds from the brand new intercontinental ballistic missile known as the ground-based strategic deterrent to efforts to vaccinate every American from the coronavirus. That's the real threat to every American. That's the real threat that's going to lead to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans. And we have to fully fund it. And we know where the money can come from the ground-based strategic deterrent. The case against the new ICBM is a slam dunk. First, we can extend the lifespan of the existing Minuteman III ICBM to at least 2050 at far less than the cost of the $100 billion required to build the new one. And second, ICBMs are relics of our Cold War past, when only 2 superpowers feared a decapitating nuclear first strike, one that would erase millions of lives and usher in a nuclear winter. The multi-generational commitment to a new ICBM is based on the fallacy that an enemy will only feel deterred if we have the capability to make the rubble bounce over and over and over again. The fact is that we can destroy the world several times over with the nuclear firepower located on our undetectable ballistic missile submarines, all by themselves. And lastly, our subs, or boomers, give the United States a survivable second strike capability independent of ground-based nuclear weapons. And ICBMs, unlike our nuclear-capable bombers, cannot be recalled once they take flight towards their targets. There are no mulligans in nuclear war, no second chances, no do-overs. And when we posture our ICBM forces to launch on warning, we are inviting potential disaster. The incentive to use it, lose it, forces our president to make a snap decision that may end life on the planet as we know it within minutes of receiving a warning of an incoming ICBM attack. And make no mistake, the only reason we haven't experienced catastrophic incidents is luck. But we cannot continue to play Russian roulette with these weapons. We must end launch on warning, or its euphemism, launch under attack. And we must responsibly transition to a future that no longer features armed ICBMs in our silos. Diplomacy can get us there. Kennedy and Khrushchev put an end to atmospheric nuclear testing 1 year after the Cuban Missile Crisis. Reagan and Gorbachev eliminated entire classes of nuclear weapons, and they began negotiations on what was to become the START Treaty, covering long-range or strategic nuclear weapons. President Trump is the anomaly to these predecessors and all of the others who reduced nuclear risk. Trump was the first president since the 1960s to fail to negotiate any new arms control treaty or agreement. And worse, Trump increased new nuclear threats where they no longer existed by terminating several treaties and agreements. President Trump and John Bolton were arms control arsonists as they lit ablaze treaty after treaty, the INF Treaty, the Iran deal, the Open Skies Treaty, and that's just for starters. The Trump administration even flirted with breaking a generation of old freezes on explosive nuclear weapons testing. My Planet Act helped shut the door on their designs to restart U.S. underground nuclear tests by passing legislation in the National Defense Authorization Act last year to prohibit U.S. nuclear weapons testing. We struck a truly alarming provision from Senator Tom Cotton that would have given $10 million to prepare to fire off a nuclear test in 2021. It was a loss for fallout shelters, but a win for American security. And luckily, under President Biden, we can build back stronger and better, and early signs are that we will. On Thursday, President Biden offered to extend the New START treaty with Russia a full 5 years, something I had just pressed his Secretary of State nominee, Tony Blinken, to do 48 hours earlier in his confirmation hearing before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Breathing new life into this treaty keeps verifiable caps on the strategic forces of the two largest nuclear powers and can begin to arrest any future arms race. Doing this on day 2 of the administration shows that the New START really is a new start to an America leading the globe on nonproliferation. Secretary of State to be Tony Blinken told me that President Biden intends to rejoin the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the Iran deal, so long as Iran returns to compliance with its commitments under that deal. To bolster that case, I will reintroduce my Iran Diplomacy Act that says that full implementation of the Iran deal is the best way to prevent war and an arms race in the Middle East. And since President Biden isn't known for being pen pals with murderous dictators, I believe he will commit to smart diplomacy with North Korea aimed to freeze and unwind its nuclear weapons program. 70 years of conflict is far too long. And I hope that President Biden will also seek talks to bring the Korean War to a final close. But we have to be even bigger and bolder if we want to lift the nuclear sword of Damocles that hangs over each and every one of us. Many of you, and I have organized on this front before, have joined throughout your lives to fight against the nuclear arms race. At the height of the Cold War, back in 1982, after I had introduced the nuclear freeze resolution into the United States Congress, I asked 1 million Americans gathered in New York Central Park, still the largest gathering of Americans ever. I asked them a simple question. Do you want to end the arms race? Our movement helped freeze and dial back the nuclear arms of the world's two superpowers during the Cold War, but we need to harness that same energy again today. We need a 21st century freeze movement adapted for our multipolar environment. My HALT Act lays out a blueprint for what one could look like, including entry into force of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, ratifying a treaty that freezes the production of fissile material, and heading up a disarmament summit with the world's nuclear weapons powers. President Obama got world leaders to agree to lock down nuclear material. Now President Biden can use the same approach for secure commitments to halt the assembly line for new nuclear weapons and delivery vehicles. Half measures will no longer meet the legal and moral responsibility of countries under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty to pursue disarmament. The glacial pace of disarmament is what fueled the negotiation and yesterday entry into force of the treaty to prohibit nuclear weapons. There are few signs that nuclear weapons countries will soon surrender their arsenals and sign up to the ban treaty anytime soon. But even if we concede that nuclear weapons will not disappear overnight, we can at least work on measures that ensure that a Hiroshima or Nagasaki will never be repeated. In 1985, I traveled to Hiroshima for the 40th anniversary of that tragic day. And I met and I hugged survivors of the first use of nuclear weapons 40 years earlier. And each year, as the number of atomic bomb survivors diminishes, our joint resolve to prevent war, much less nuclear war, must grow. So I stand with you in this fight. I wrote a book back in 1982, Nuclear Peril, The Politics of Proliferation. And that's what it is. It's politics. And what we now have is a movement. We have people willing to stand up and to say that enough is enough. And I thank everyone who is gathered here today for all of your efforts. MIT, Peace Action, this is an incredibly formidable alliance that has been put together. The politics of proliferation is something that I think in a lot of ways drove this race to oust Donald Trump. People did not trust that he would have his finger on the nuclear code. Because of that, we have a chance. We have a chance to just say, let's reapportion this budget, which we have on the drawing boards right now, $2 trillion over the next 30 years on more nuclear weapons. That will not make us safer. We have to have this movement grow and build in the same way that we put 1 million people in Central Park in 1982. Because together we can prevent the rebirth of the fallout shelters that were a hallmark of the mid and latter half of the 20th century. Together, we can work to save lives rather than build lethal weapons designed to end them. And together, we can preserve for future generations what Carl Sagan called the pale blue dot, the only home that we have ever known. That's why I'm so honored to be partnered with Mass Peace Action, with you, Cole, with all of these incredibly brilliant people at MIT and the other institutions who are all come together, gathered, because we know that there are many better things to which we can spend these dollars than on more nuclear weapons. That will only make us more unsafe. So the final option is we're either going to live together or we're going to die together. We're either going to know each other or we're going to exterminate each other. So this new era has to be one that focuses on diplomacy, not on adding more nuclear weapons to our arsenal, so that we can be the leaders to say to the rest of the world that we must close this chapter of world history. So thank you all so much for your advocacy, for your commitment to peace. It's my honor to be with you.
Thank you, Senator, for those moving remarks. We are so grateful for your leadership. I understood from your staff that you wouldn't have time to take questions, but if you do have a few minutes, we can have a conversation.
I apologize to you, Cole. It's straight out here in terms of my ability, and I love being with you, but we're still working here on Saturday, trying to get all of this work done. And I apologize to you, but I'm with you. I'm with you on all of the goals which your conference is identifying. It's
a wild time in the U.S. Senate, and we are so grateful to have you there, sir.
Thank you, Cole.
Representative. Thank you, sir. I have a few calls to action for the group. I'll just put up a slide or two. See if I can figure out how to do this. Yeah. What am I doing wrong?
Share screen.
Share screen, share screen. Just so. Okay, so this is a little collage of some of the actions around Massachusetts yesterday on the entry into force of the ban treaty. I think there were, 5 different face-to-face actions in Pittsfield, Northampton, Worcester, Cambridge, and at the State House. Arlington had its action this morning, and Newton has its action on Monday. I'm hitting next slide, but it's not. Oh, here we go. All right. We have 3 online actions I want you to take while we're waiting for the next panel. The first is to call on Congress to enact a no first use policy and to call on the president to enact one also. And here's the link for the petition. Brian, are you able to put these in the chat?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, thank you. So that way it's easier, and hopefully people can click on the link in the chat, go straight to the petition and send it off for a no first use policy. Second is to call on legislators to sign the legislative pledge for the ban treaty. This pledge says that those legislators will work to enact the ban treaty in the United States. And Representative McGovern has done that, and State Senators Comerford and Eldridge and Representative Lindsay Sabadosa have already signed. Both US Congress and senators and also state legislators are all eligible. And of course in other states too. I know we have many people from outside Mass with us today. We have a Fund Healthcare Not Warfare campaign, and this calls on both the state and federal governments to change their policies, cut spending on the military, and redirect that funding to COVID relief, healthcare, and a single payer policy, and to take public health measures to keep people in Massachusetts safe. So there's this sign-on letter there. And finally, on Monday, it's a global day of action on Yemen. And we have 3 actions in Massachusetts, the main one being at the State House in Boston. And it will also march to several locations in the downtown area associated with the war drive, the Saudi UAE war drive in Yemen. So gather at noon at the State House. They're also going to gather at 7 a.m. at the Raytheon plant in Andover and at noon in Northampton at Representative McGovern's office. There's also an international live stream with a variety of speakers on the Yemen war at 2 p.m. And Monday is also the day to call President Biden and post on social media. And Brian will be sending an email Monday morning with further details on exactly what to say. And there's a sign up here where you can fill in a blank and tell us how you're going to participate on Monday. That's it. Now we will go to